In a quiet medieval land, where the moon hung silver above castle towers and the soft glow of lanterns shimmered across cobblestone paths, there lived a small rabbit named Rowan, who dreamed of becoming a knight, though most thought it was a dream too big for a creature so small. Yet Rowan's heart was filled with courage. And each evening he would sit upon the grassy hill outside the castle walls and imagine himself wearing shining armor, carrying a wooden shield, and standing guard beside the great stone gates, for though he was gentle and kind, he wished most of all to protect those he loved. And so the story of the brave rabbit knight begins, in the kingdom of Everwood, where animals lived together in harmony beneath the watchful eyes of King Cedric the Bear, wise and noble, who wore a golden crown set with tiny green emeralds that glimmered like forest leaves in sunlight, and beside him, Queen Seraphina the Swan, graceful and gentle, who carried herself with kindness and always sang soft lullabies in the great hall. And within that hall, lit by long rows of candles, knights and squires would gather after their journeys, sharing bread, honey, and warm stews from bronze bowls. Their laughter echoing beneath painted ceilings where stars and moons were carved by paw and claw long ago, and though Rowan had never sat among them, he often listened from the shadows, imagining the tales of quests and bravery as his own, until one autumn evening, when the castle bell tolled low and slow, and a hush fell over Everwood, for a message had arrived from the dark forest that bordered the kingdom, a forest filled with whispers and strange lights, where old owls spoke of enchantments and where paths often twisted into places unseen. And the message was troubling indeed, for it told of a crown of silver leaves and morning dew, kept safe in the watchtower of the woods by the ancient owl sage, stolen in the night by unseen paws. And without this crown, the forest's magic was fading, lanterns that once glowed on their own now dimmed, streams that once sang grew quiet, and the harmony of Everwood trembled like a harp string. And so King Cedric called upon his bravest knights, Sir Reynard the Fox, clever and quick, Lady Mirabelle the Deer, noble and kind, and Sir Bartholomew the Badger, strong as stone, to journey into the forest and retrieve the crown. Yet as they prepared to ride, Rowan stepped forward from the crowd, his ears quivering, his paws clutching a wooden toy sword he had carved himself. And with a trembling but steady voice, he asked the king if he might join, a request that made many chuckle, for what could a small rabbit do among such mighty knights? Yet Queen Seraphina's eyes softened, and she whispered to the king that sometimes the smallest hearts carried the greatest bravery. And so, though the knights smiled and shook their heads, Rowan was allowed to follow, given only a lantern, a small round shield made from polished oak, and the promise that he might walk at the back of the company. And so they set off, beneath the rising moon, hooves and paws upon the path, lanterns swinging, voices low as the night wrapped around them like a velvet cloak. And Rowan, though nervous, felt his heart beating bright, for at last, he was part of a quest, and though the forest loomed ahead with shadows deep and thick, he knew he must walk bravely, step by careful step. And soon the company reached the edge of the dark wood, where trees arched high like cathedral ceilings, their branches whispering secrets as the wind passed through, and the air smelled of pine and damp earth. And little motes of light, like fireflies, drifted in the gloom, guiding their path, and deeper they went, until the sounds of the castle faded, and only the hush of the forest remained, steady and calm, yet filled with mystery. And as they walked, Sir Reynard told tales of hidden passages, Lady Mirabelle hummed gentle songs to keep the group steady, and Sir Bartholomew's heavy steps gave comfort, like the steady beat of a drum. Yet all the while, Rowan kept his lantern close, watching, listening, and remembering the queen's words about the smallest hearts. And soon, the path narrowed, leading to a stone arch covered in ivy, where a soft glow pulsed like the heart of the forest itself. And the knights paused, for they knew the crown must lie somewhere beyond, but the arch was too small for them to pass, only a creature light and nimble could slip through. And so, with wide eyes and a quick breath, Rowan stepped forward, for at last the moment had come where he, small though he was, might be the one to continue the quest. And though the knights hesitated, they saw the determination in his eyes, like moonlight steady on still water, and they let him pass, whispering blessings and promises to wait. And so Rowan, the little rabbit who dreamed of knighthood, entered the ivy arch alone, his lantern casting circles of golden light upon the mossy stones, and with each step he whispered softly to himself, "Be brave, be kind, be true." And the forest seemed to listen, guiding him gently deeper into its heart. Rowan's little paws pressed softly into the mossy earth, his lantern casting a warm circle of light that seemed to float with him as he wandered deeper into the enchanted forest. And though the night was quiet, it felt alive, as though the trees themselves were listening to his every step. And before long, he entered a glade where silver moonbeams spilled like waterfalls through the branches, bathing the clearing in a dreamlike glow. And there in the center stood a pedestal of ancient stone, empty, though featherdown still clung to its surface, proof that the crown of silver leaves had once rested there. And just as Rowan's ears twitched with worry, a soft flutter of wings filled the air, and the owl sage appeared, tall and wise, with feathers speckled like stars and eyes as deep as the midnight sky, and the owl spoke with a voice like wind through hollow trees, telling Rowan that the crown had been stolen into the heart of the woods, where shadows guarded it jealously, and only one who carried kindness stronger than fear could hope to return it, and though Rowan's heart quivered, he bowed low, holding out his little wooden sword, not in pride but as a promise. And the owl sage, seeing his courage, gave him a charm shaped like a glowing leaf, whispering that when doubts grew heavy, its light would guide him, and so Rowan went on, the path winding, the forest bending close, roots curling like ancient snakes, branches whispering as though they knew his name, and soon he reached a stream, wide and glittering, too deep for him to leap, and across the water shimmered a faint silver glow, and Rowan's ears drooped. For he feared he had come too far to turn back yet could not go on, but then, from the reeds, a swan rose, her feathers glowing like pearls, and she bent her neck to him, offering her back, and in a voice as soft as lullabies, she told him that true knights never journey alone, they always accept the kindness of others, and Rowan, thankful, climbed upon her, and she carried him smoothly across, gliding like moonlight over still glass, and when they reached the far shore, she vanished into the mist, leaving only ripples behind, and Rowan whispered his little prayer again, be brave, be kind, be true, and walked onward into a grove where lanterns of no flame hung in the air, glowing blue and green like drifting stars, and there the shadows gathered, long and curling, their whispers sharp and cold, telling him he was too small, too weak. That knights must be mighty and tall, and Rowan felt his paws shake, his lantern dim, yet he held the leaf charm tightly. And it warmed in his paw like the steady beat of his own heart, and he whispered once more, be brave, be kind, be true, and the shadows shrank, melting away like smoke before dawn, and in the silence that followed, he saw the crown resting upon a stone, shimmering with morning dew, delicate and shining as though woven from the dreams of the forest itself, and when he reached for it, a final guardian appeared, a fox-shaped spirit with amber eyes, who asked softly, do you take this crown for yourself, little one, or for your kingdom? And Rowan bowed his head, answering with quiet honesty, not for me, but for all who need its light, and the spirit smiled, fading away like candle smoke, leaving the crown free to be lifted, and as Rowan held it, light filled the grove, gentle music rising from nowhere, as though the trees themselves sang, and the whole forest seemed to sigh in relief, and with the crown safe, he returned to the ivy arch, where the great knights waited, and when they saw him, small yet steady, carrying the treasure they could not reach, their eyes filled with respect. And they bowed to him, for even the bravest saw the courage of his heart, and together they returned to the castle. Lanterns swinging high, voices low with wonder, and in the grand hall, Rowan knelt before King Cedric and Queen Seraphina, laying the silver crown before them, and the queen, her eyes filled with warmth, lifted his chin and declared that bravery is not measured in size but in the kindness of one's heart, and the king, smiling, placed a tiny silver helm upon Rowan's head, naming him Sir Rowan, the rabbit knight of the castle, and that night the hall filled with feasting, honey cakes, sweet berries, warm bread, and soft music drifting through the rafters, yet all eyes turned to the little rabbit knight, who had proven that the smallest paws can carry the greatest courage, and so his tale was told again and again beneath lantern light and starlit skies. And children of Everwood whispered his name as they dreamed, for they knew that kindness, honesty, and gentle bravery always shone brightest of all, and so, under the quiet medieval stars, our tale drifts into dreams, where courage, kindness ****